All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Howard Hakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught us his truth and who also grew well. Peace and salutation to those of the hopeful elect. All right, just wanted to do, a quick lesson. All right, going into how hey, the time is nearer than when we believe, man. All right. The time of the collapse of Babylon the Great, also known as America. All right. It's nearer than what we believe. And, you go online and, you watch a lot of black pill videos, or a lot of videos going into, people complaining about the economy and the cost of living. And it's like an endless amount of Americans, all right, pretty much complaining because they're catching hell in the economy, all right, and they don't see a bright future in America, all right. Well, the point, I want to make is the fact that, these Babylonians are considering, all right, that America would never, bounce back. All right. The fact that they're considering that, it's possible that America could collapse. It lets you know that, this place could actually collapse at any moment. Okay. Because the prophecy goes, and let me get it real quick. Okay. Here it is right here. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5:3, it says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." Okay? So, hey, these people, they're not saying peace and safety right now. All right? They're concerned about the economy. So at some point, okay, the Lord is just going to collapse this bitch. Okay, these people, they're not going to have enough time to prepare. All right, when the Lord brings that sudden destruction. Okay, right now, it's all up in the air with these people. Okay, and on top of that, they don't understand the prophecies. So, they don't really know, how short of a time this place actually has. All right. All they know is that, the prices is going up, gas is going up. All right. But in the back of their mind, they still think that even though times is hard economically, that, the worst case scenario won't happen. Okay. But these people, are considering, all right, but the Lord is going to actually, bring the end sooner. Okay. Because it's going to be to the astonishment of these people when everything goes to shit. All right. And you see in these different movies like Bushwick. All right. Certain video games like The Last of Us, the first one. All right. It shows you that at any moment, regular everyday life, all right, will change and can change and will change for good. Okay. And those movies depict, or even there's a more recent movie. It's called Leave the World Behind. Okay. So these movies is pretty much, out there because the scriptures, all right, they get it from the scriptures. All right. These different movie directors that got handlers. All right. They derive their different movies based off what's written in the scriptures, and that's their secret formula to make captivating movies. But they'll never tell you that. Okay, even the X-Men, all right, and things like that, spiritual powers, is all based off of the scriptures. All right, and the artists and the people that wrote those stories, they'll tell you, all right, they got it from the scriptures. Okay, so these different post-apocalyptic movies, all right, it's all prophesied to happen in the times that we're in now. Okay, First Thessalonians 5:4, it says, "But ye brethren are not in darkness," and that's speaking of those of the hopeful elect. All right, and what does darkness represent? Darkness represents, not understanding the truth. Okay, living your life in a delusion, like 2/3 of Israel is. Okay, they're not able to see prophecy, which prophecy is the clearest form of understanding reality. All right, and 2/3, they're in darkness. Okay, they still want to be called black. They're still into black culture. Okay, they still are degenerates ultimately, and they still think that America is going to continue on. All right, now those that are not in darkness, speaking of the hopeful elect, the Lord has awoken to be able to see the trajectory of everything, and it's all leading to the fulfillment of these scriptures. Okay, World War III. All right, the apostles and elders, starting off, with our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, has been speaking about these things, going into, breaking down the scriptures with the 100% truth. All right, our apostles was going into how, America's allies were eventually, going to turn on America. All right, and eventually shoot missiles. All right, that's prophesied in the scriptures. Okay, and our apostles and elders has been teaching these things, and now they're coming to fruition. All right, and many more prophecies is getting ready to take place. Okay, ultimately leading up to the deliverance of the elect. All right, those that are in the know. All right, those that are not in the darkness. It says, "But ye brethren are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief." Okay, why is that? Because now that the hopeful elect are awakened, now they're watching for the prophecies to be fulfilled. Okay, but these people in the world, they're not watching for it. They don't know what's going to happen. Okay, we know for surety, America's going to collapse. These people, they think that, America could bounce back. All right, they think America, could somehow, still continue on, but it won't. Okay, let me get another precept. Bear with me real quick. I'm gonna walk and talk. Yeah, here it is, 2nd Ezra, chapter 6. And I'm gonna start at I'm gonna start at 20. It says, "And when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished," which that's talking about this current world. All right, because the Lord did away, with the world that was in the pre-Diluvian age, which was prior to the flood taking place. Okay. whatever was going on, on the earth during that time is unknown, because the Lord erased that time period and started over with Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives. Okay, which the chosen lineage came out of Shem. All right. Speaking of, going down to Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob, not Esau, which the scriptures say Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So right now, Esau is currently in rule. All right. But his rulership is shortly to be ended. All right. And we know that by way of what's taking place currently and linking it back to the scriptures. All right. So back to 2 Ezra 6:20, it says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. All right. So, the Lord said he was going to show tokens, which are signs. It says, the books shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. Okay. Speaking of those that are not in the darkness, it was prophesied that the light, would come. All right. Hey, that's Yahweh Shai opening the understanding. Okay. Starting off with High Priest Abba Bivens. All right. Which that was prophesied. Okay. Shall turn their hearts. Let me get that real quick. I believe it's Malachi. Bear with me real quick. Was it where it says the Lord will send Elijah? Yeah, Malachi 4:5. It says, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. All right. And that was High Priest Abba Bivens. All right. If you could receive it. Okay. Because reincarnation is in the scriptures. All right. But that's a lesson for another time. All right. But if you could receive it. Okay. High Priest Abba Bivens. All right. Is Elijah. Okay. And the truth started when High Priest Abba Bivens. Okay. This is prophecy being fulfilled in this time. So that's another one of those tokens. All right. And here it is. Fast forward, going back to 2 Ezra 6:20, it says, then will I show these tokens. The books shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. Now, this truth has spread all throughout the world. And you have great millstone camps and brothers that are teaching in the same doctrine, in the same spirit as Great Millstone, which we say we have the 100% truth. All right, you have camps all over the world. Okay, so the books are open and they shall all see together, meaning the elect will all see the truth, which there's only one truth. Okay, and the elect is a small remnant. Right? So this is a sign to let you know that we're in those times now. Okay, the time of great destruction and great deliverance. Verse 21, it says, and the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. The women with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 or 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up. It says, but here's the point I want to make. In verse 22, it says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Okay? So it says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, because that collapse is coming. All right? And, a sneak peek of that was when, that scamdemic that happened and people was locked in their homes. All right, there was curfews. And what happened? Nature immediately started to take over. Animals started to come into the inner cities. Okay. the grass in different, foliage started to grow over. Okay. And that started happening fast. Okay. So when this place ultimately collapses, it's not going to take long. It's only going to take a few months for this place to look completely post-apocalyptic. Okay. It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Yeah, and people is going to be ransacking Costco, Wally World, Target, all these different grocery stores are going to be empty in a matter of days. And then there's going to be no food left for anyone because the trucks is going to stop coming in. Okay. The ships is going to stop coming into to Babylon. All right. So, this is what, we're anticipating. Okay. As the hopeful elect. And we're hoping and praying and putting our trust in Yahweh Shema Shai that the Lord deliver us in these times and feed us and protect us. Okay. Which the Lord promised he would do for the elect. Okay. So, let me get another precept. This is Hebrews 11:13. Well, actually, that's the wrong one. It's in the Apocrypha. It's in 2nd Esdras. Yep, 2nd Esdras 16. And I'm going to start at 2nd Esdras 16. I'm going to start at 37. It says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment. Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn and sorrow shall come upon it on every side. Okay, and pretty much what Trump is doing, he's breaking, the global economy essentially. All right, the structure that's been, operating, Trump is disrupting that by way of causing, different discrepancies, different, wars. That now the Strait of Hormuz is seized up. All right. Now these different nations are stepping away from the U.S. dollar, which the U.S. dollar, at one point, you would have to, deal with the U.S. dollar. You would have to, convert your, currency to the U.S. dollar to do major deals and stuff. All right. But now these nations are pivoting away from that structure and it's all crumbling down. And they plan on, building a new structure. All right. All these nations really are all shadow governed by the elites, because all these other nations, they just want to be the first in an NWO. All right. Because they're all adopting the beast system with the digital technology. All right. But this is going to come to naught. Okay. It's not going to, because after Esau goes down, all right, Yahweh Shema Shai is going to establish the kingdom. Okay. So, anyways, with this current system collapsing, all right, these people, they're feeling it. All right, they're feeling the beginning of it, the beginning of sorrows. All right. And yet, these people, they still want to act like, judgment. They're still acting like judgment ain't coming. All right. And that's why they still trying to do what they do. They trying to ride the bus until the wheels fall off, so to speak. All right. They're going to keep riding until the wheels fall off. All right. But they don't think the wheels is actually going to fall off. All right. Verse 39, it says, even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth. So it's going to suddenly happen. It says the world shall mourn and the sorrow shall come upon it on every side. So these people are going to be terrified, tormented. All right. There's going to be pestilences, famines. All right. Marauders, Gurga troops. All right. It's going to be nothing but chaos on no matter where you turn. It says, oh, my people, hear my word. All right. So the word is going out. The books are open. Okay. This truth is being preached. Okay. But when the Lord actually brings the judgment, there's going to be no more teaching. All right. The famine of the word is going to take place. So now is the time to hear the word and take heed to the instruction so that, ye might be saved. We might be saved. I'll continue to read. It says, make you ready to thy battle. And how do you do that? All right. By taking heed to the Spirit. Coming back to Yahweh Shema Shai, repenting, putting off the ways of this current world, which is the reason why the Lord going to destroy this place, is because this current world is wicked. The ways of this place. It says, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. Okay, so not having a certain dwelling place to stay, having to be on foot. Okay, that's the time we're coming in. All right, because people are comfortable now. They can go home, they can go to the grocery store, they can lay up in bed, they can take a shower. All right, they could watch their favorite TV show. All right, they could play their video games, but in the time to come, none of that is going to be taking place. Okay, it's going to be the most uncomfortable times in history. All right, and as a believer in Yahweh Shema Shai, all right, we're going to have to be on the move a lot. All right, and believing in the Lord. All right, because Esau, he's going to implement the MOTB, which is subdermal, the Neuralink, the subdermal device. Okay, and those that don't want to participate are going to be ostracized from society. All right, so, but it's cool because this place is never our home anyway. All right, and those that receive the MOTB is going to receive a heavy judgment. Okay, the thermonuclear missiles and the fire from the lasers of the chariots from the angels when they return with our Lord Yahweh Shai. Okay, so we're getting ready to enter into those times. Okay, so I want to get another precept, and then I'll begin to close it out. This is Romans chapter 13. All right, we just read, it says, but ye, brethren, are not in darkness. Okay. Romans 13:11, it says, in that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. All right, not to be, like these people that are asleep spiritually. Here it is. The worst storm is approaching. All right, and all the signs are there. Okay, but these people are not preparing. All right, and it's really because they're allotted to be destroyed. But for the elect is the elect know the storm is coming. Okay, and the elect is preparing for that time. It says, for now is our salvation nearer than we believed. Okay, so yeah, it's nearer than what we believe. Okay, so we think this thing is close, but it's actually closer than our spiritual measurement, because we measure it according to the scriptures. But it's actually more closer than our than what we're able to actually discern. Okay, and that's why the Lord commanded us to be on our watch. Okay, So going back to 2 Thessalonians 5:4, it says, "But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober." All right. So, hey, we got to continue to, push this word, and if you're not a prophet, but you believe in Yahweh Shema Shai, continue, to pray, fast or whatever, you do, to give alms, whatever, works and gifts that Yahweh Shema Shai, has given us. All right. Continue to, utilize these things. Okay. Because when this place collapses, the only things that we're going to have is our faith in Yahweh Shema Shai, So, yeah, we in that time. So, Lord's will, I want to say, call all Yahweh Shema Shai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who taught us the truth and who also were well. Peace and salutation to those of the hopeful elect. Shalom and the bar.